Waldo did not think of himself as a snoop. He preferred household detective, a title he felt implied an air of civic duty. Detectives, after all, protected the innocent, ferreted out wrongdoing, and kept order. Detectives did not, for instance, stand in the kitchen with a dying phone, muttering at a tangle of charging cables while eyeing a purse on the counter like it had just materialized there with a faint, suspicious hum. "Rachel," he called as if to give himself permission. "Have you seen my charger?" She was upstairs, hair dryer roaring. The purse sat innocent and open, a leather moon with the tide out. Waldo glanced at the dying phone, then at the purse. He told himself he was not searching. He was retrieving, and then he plunged a hand into the cool, cluttered darkness. Receipts first. Grocery, florist, oh, sweet. Hardware store, less sweet. Keys that poked him like a rebuke. Lip balm, a mint, unwrapped, which he flicked away with theatrical horror. And then, his fingers closed around a small, smooth cylinder. Waldo pulled it into the light and looked upon a discreet bottle with horrified eyes. The label did not blush, but Waldo did, his ears warming as he read the words that had, in his mind, destroyed civilizations, toppled emperors, and started entire threads on the Red Flag Rangers forum. It was intimate lubrication. His phone died with a little gasp of surrender while Waldo stared at the bottle. The kitchen went very quiet, as kitchens do just before they host poor decisions. There are men who, upon discovering something they don't fully understand, ask a question. Waldo believed he was not like them. Waldo believed he was brave. He recapped the bottle like he was defusing a bomb and set it down with the gravity of a judge delivering a sentence. He did not confront Rachel. He did not even breathe. He did what any brave man with a malfunctioning sense of proportion might do. He opened his laptop, typed, "Signs your wife is cheating, purse, edition," into the search bar, and hurled himself into the churning sea of certainty the internet keeps for men just like him. Within minutes, he had the confidence of 10 lifetimes. Articles with exclamation points assured him no woman owned such a thing, except in times of rampant infidelity, marital decay, and possibly Mercury in retrograde. A forum user named Betrayal Eagle posted a 9-point checklist that, whether or not it related to Waldo's life, felt profoundly applicable. Someone had created a flowchart. Waldo printed it. He printed everything. By the time Rachel called down that she was headed to the store and asked if he needed anything, Waldo was already transforming the guest room into a crime lab. He pinned the printed articles to a corkboard he'd rescued from the garage, drew red yarn between bottle and receipt pile, between receipt pile and florist, which now read in his head, florist, between florist and neighbor's blue Prius, because he needed the yarn to go somewhere, and the Prius always looked smug. The dog wandered in, toenails clicking, and sat with the air of a visiting detective from a more competent precinct. "Boone," Waldo said, crouching so they were eye level. "Did you see anyone suspicious in the house recently?" He held up a treat. "Blink twice for yes." Boone, a Labrador of princely patience and the emotional range of a saint, blinked several times because blinking is what eyes do, and then yawned. Waldo recorded this gravely in a notebook. Canine witness evasive. He took photos of the bottle from various angles, realized he had no idea what he'd do with the photos, and took more anyway. The corkboard filled, so did his chest, tight with a strange, solemn righteousness that was really fear wearing a borrowed uniform. When Rachel came back, balancing a bag of produce on her hip, Waldo was at the dining table pretending to look casual, which only emphasized how much he wasn't. He slid his laptop shut as if it hadn't lately been counseling him toward madness. "Everything okay?" she said, dropping keys into a bowl. "Great," Waldo said too quickly. "Great, great. How's the store?" "Lettuce was a crime scene," she said. "Bought tomatoes so we can do pasta. Do you still want—" "Why are you looking at me like you're about to present an evidence exhibit?" Waldo cleared his throat. He had rehearsed nothing, but he could not yet show his hand. Detectives live for the long game. "No reason," he said, and then in a voice that aimed for breezy and hit clammy, "So, buy anything. Slippery. Lately?" Rachel paused, hand still in the grocery bag. "Slippery?" "Like, things that lend slip," he said, then abandoned the sentence in the woods and let it die there. She regarded him, baffled. "Are you talking about olive oil?" Could be, Waldo said, a man trying to look unsuspicious while on fire. Dinner did not improve matters. Waldo asked how her day had been, with a tone that suggested he already knew, and the answer would be entered into the record. She asked if he'd charged his phone yet. He said he had not, because charging felt like a betrayal of the crisis. Rachel ate her pasta with the contemplative attention of someone not yet aware she was the subject of a full-court press. When she laughed at a story from work, Janine's cat, the plant, a ruin. Waldo flinched, hearing in the laughter the metallic ring of guilt, though it was only the sound of a woman enjoying her noodles. He went to bed early and lay awake, eyes open to the glow of his conspiracy corkboard in the next room, which pulsed in his head like an exit sign. Morning brought courage, of a kind, brief and brittle. Rachel was on the couch with a mug and a blanket, hair in a loose knot, scrolling the news. Waldo stood in the doorway, palms damp, and decided subtlety had only made him miserable. "I found the bottle," he announced, a judge banging a gavel. "In your purse. I know what you're doing." Rachel looked up, blinking at him, then at the air between them, as if expecting a clown to jump out. "Bottle?" He produced it from behind his back with a magician's flair he would shortly regret. "This," he said, and felt the word clang in the room. Her face traveled a small country's worth of expressions. Confusion, recognition, irritation, the fine, exhausted humor of a woman whose husband had leapt to the worst possible conclusion because his internet had told him to. "Waldo," she said evenly, "that's not evidence of an affair." "Oh, so it's moisturizer now," he said, sounding triumphant, then hearing how it sounded. "It is," she said, and then, with a patience he did not deserve, "Come here." She reached for her phone. He flinched like she'd drawn a weapon. "Rachel," he said, "there are things you can say to me, but—" "I'm not saying anything," she said. "I'm calling someone." She put the phone on speaker. It rang twice. "Hello, dear," said the bright voice that had, for decades, told Waldo to sit up straight and to bring a jacket in case it got cold. "Are you two coming for dinner Sunday? I found a roast recipe that—" "Hi, Mom," Rachel said, cheerfully grim. "You're on speaker with Waldo." "Wonderful." "Hello, darling," the voice trilled. "Did the basil plant I sent survive your black thumb?" "Mom," Waldo said, feeling as if he was about to be hit by a polite bus. "Quick question," Rachel said. "The bottle you gave me, remember?" A beat of silence. "Oh," his mother said, delighted. "Yes, the lubricant. I thought it might help. Perfectly normal, dear. Dryness is nobody's fault. Menopause is a thief. Also, Waldo, be a good sport. You were a very chapped-lipped baby. You needed salves of all kinds." "Mother," Waldo said in a voice no man should ever have to use past the age of 12. "And tell him I found a coupon," she added busily, "for the family-size bottle. You have to buy two to get the discount, but honestly, that seems like a nice vote of confidence in your marriage." Rachel ended the call. She looked at him over the phone with a composure that, if bottled, would have put the other bottle to shame. "Your mother," she said, "gave it to me. I mentioned to her," this was after book club, "that I'd been uncomfortable lately, and she said, 'Oh, I have just the thing.' And she went to her bathroom cabinet and came out like a fairy godmother of practicalities. It was sweet, mortifying, but sweet." She tipped her head. "What on earth did you think it meant?" Waldo's mouth opened. No words came out. Every strand of red yarn on his corkboard dissolved into floss. The dog, passing by, sneezed, as if the case were irritating his sinuses. "I—" Waldo began. "I—" Rachel set the phone down and folded the blanket more carefully than necessary. "I was going to use it the next time we were intimate," she said, still calm, which was worse than yelling, "because I thought it would make me more comfortable and both of us happier. But now—" She lifted her eyes in the cool there cut like fine glass, not to kill but to instruct. "I'm not sure you deserve intimacy at all." "Rachel," Waldo said, "I am—" "Listen." She stood and the blanket slid from her lap like a verdict. "You went through my purse. You built something with string. You asked the dog leading questions. And then you marched in here like a parade marshal and accused me of betrayal because you found a bottle of moisturizer my mother-in-law gave me." He swore he could hear the capital letters in mother-in-law. "I am so, so sorry," he said, because apologies, once finally wrenched free from pride, can pour like rain. I panicked. I didn't ask. I let the internet deputize me. And I am, for the record, a buffoon. Correct, she said. He did not reach for humor. The moment would not bear it. What can I do, he asked, to repair this? I mean practically. I understand that trust has a half-life, and I have squandered. Stop, she said, and held up a hand. You can't spreadsheet your way out of this. Just behave like a grown man who trusts his wife and mind your own business unless you are invited into it. Waldo nodded so hard his neck clicked. Yes, absolutely. I will. Might I also, would it help if I destroyed the corkboard? Yes, she said. Burn it for all I care. He went to the guest room and dismantled his investigation with the solemnity of a mariner striking a mutinous flag. He unwound the yarn, stacked the papers, and dropped the flowchart into the recycling. He took a photo of the empty wall and, for reasons he couldn't later explain, whispered, "Case dismissed," to the indifferent spackle. Then the penance began, not out of calculation, but because love, once it stops posturing as suspicion, often expresses itself in practicalities. Flowers arrived, not an extravagant bouquet, but the kind of mixed bunch Rachel liked, the unshowy stems that looked like they'd traveled a long way to be exactly themselves. He wrote a letter instead of a text, with ink that left a small smear where his hand smudged it, and the letter said, among other things, that he had mistaken anxiety for evidence and pride for prudence, an error that had embarrassed him so deeply he could feel it in the bones of his face. He cleaned the bathroom tiles until they offered faint reflections. He learned the choreography of the laundry room, a dance he'd previously avoided by pretending to be rhythmically cursed. He cooked with recipes he whispered to, like spells. When Rachel reached for a glass, somehow it was already in her hand. When she sighed because the trash was full, the bin had a bag again before the sigh finished. Boone found this new era delightful. People who cook drop food, and people who mop floors tend to do it with treats in their pockets. Boone followed Waldo around with the devotion of a parishioner who has discovered his priest may also be Santa. On the third evening, Waldo found himself searching his own heart the way he'd searched the purse. Only this time he was looking for his mistakes, examining them, and deciding they no longer fit. He knocked softly on the den door where Rachel sat reading, that clean, crisp posture she had when words pleased her. "May I enter the courtroom?" he said, careful with the lilt. She did not look up. "Approach the bench," she said. He crossed to her, fingers pleating themselves into worry, and then nodding. "I am not asking you to forgive me on a timetable," he said. "I am also not asking for a rubric. I am telling you I understand what I did, and I am changing it. And if you would like, I will call my mother and tell her to please never again play magical apothecary with our personal lives, much as I love her." Rachel's mouth tugged, betraying a smile she did not quite trust. "Don't scold your mother for being kind," she said. "Scold her for archiving coupons." She did text, he admitted, a link that promised a family-sized discount. I muted the conversation before the words family-sized could colonize any more of my brain. "And the corkboard?" "Gone," he said. "I issued a formal memo of retraction and everything." "Waldo," she said at last, closing the book over a finger, "do you trust me?" "Yes," he said, the words so plain and forceful that it surprised them both. "Yes, and I am sorry I needed a crisis to hear it leave my mouth at all." She watched him a moment longer, the way one watches the sky to see if the weather promises what it says. Then she scooted over and tapped the cushion beside her. He sat. They did not touch right away. They shared silence as if it were bread. Somewhere in the house, Boone sighed the sigh of a creature whose people have learned something. Days slid into a rhythm less dramatic than the internet had promised. Waldo's urge to diagnose every shadow receded. He found that questions, spoken plainly and without preamble, brought answers that did not require yarn. Trust, it turned out, had not been lost in a dramatic heist. It had simply been misplaced behind a stack of panicked assumptions. He got better at finding it. On a Saturday morning when the sky behaved like a cliché, blue clean, pretending it had never known a cloud, Rachel came into the kitchen while he was making coffee. She crossed to him, touched his shoulder, and waited until he turned. "I was going to use it," she said, not meeting his eyes at first, "because I wanted to be close to you without gritting my teeth. I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted you to enjoy me enjoying it." He nodded, breath a tight thing. "And for a few days," she continued, "I didn't want to be close to you at all because I didn't feel safe in my own house with my own purse. But I do now, or I'm starting to." He crossed the small distance between them. "Thank you," he said simply, "for saying that. I still reserve the right," she added, "to make jokes about you asking the dog for testimony." "That was low," he said. "He's a hostile witness." "Boone," she called. The dog jogged in, ears like flags. "Did Daddy learn his lesson?" Boone wagged so hard he nearly toppled, which in legal terms is as binding as an affidavit. That night the bottle reappeared, not as an accusation but as a tool, not as evidence but as kindness. Intimacy arrived without fanfare, unaccompanied by a chorus of angels or the enraged ghosts of forum posters. It came as something simpler. Two people, still learning how to be gentle with each other's confusing, ordinary bodies. Two people who had decided to be on the same side again. In the weeks that followed, Waldo encountered many temptations to narrate the world as if it were trying to betray him. He found to his relief that he could let them pass. He also discovered that the dog had hidden one of his socks inside the couch and that this was not symbolic of anything except a lab being a lab. Sometimes very late, his phone would buzz with a text from his mother, recipes, sales, warnings about cold fronts. He responded with a heart and then silenced her again, the way an adult sets boundaries with love and relief. And if now and then he passed the guest room and thought of the corkboard, he felt not shame but a private hilarity, like remembering a haircut he'd once believed made him look serious. That perhaps is the whole of it, the thing you mistake for catastrophe, becoming an anecdote you tell on yourself, the better to remember. In case anyone is taking notes at home, the narrator offers this small memo for the file. Waldo learned two important lessons. Don't snoop, and never assume your wife's purse is a crime scene. A third, if you're inclined toward overachievement, when in doubt, ask before you diagram. The morning after the piece returned, his phone chimed with a final message. From Mom, look what I found, 20% off the good brand when you buy two. There was a confetti emoji, a jubilee of coupons, the triumphant flourish of a woman who adored both savings and her son's marriage. Waldo stared at it a long moment, then set the phone down and went to unload the dishwasher, which had also become a place where apologies lived. Upstairs, Rachel laughed at something on her screen. Just laughter, without any metal in it at all. Boone thumped his tail. The house remained stubbornly ordinary, and for once, that felt like a small, sturdy miracle. Original, heartwarming fiction every week. Subscribe for your next great story.